Hello and welcome to Nexia New Zealand's podcast. This is a podcast that's dedicated to keeping you informed and updated in this challenging and unprecedented time. My name is Maggie Jaques. I'm the Tax Director here at Nexia New Zealand. Given how quickly this situation is changing, our focus today is on clearly and succinctly outlining the relief that is available as our country prepares to enter 4 weeks of effective lockdown. Both the personal and the economic impact will be significant. Certainly from a business perspective, we understand that many clients will be faced with the immediate issue of cash flow and also with the secondary issue of long-term sustainability. Today's focus will be on the relief available to address this immediate business concern. We will be providing further updates in later podcasts, and we're happy to answer questions, and we invite questions for you, and we will provide further updates as new information comes to hand. So in terms of what's available at the moment, today's focus is really going to be about the simplifying exactly what measures are out there and how to apply for that, and also common issues that we're coming across as we are assisting clients with applying for relief. So you'll see there we've got 6 areas of government support or relief measures. So the major one is the wage subsidy, and that's certainly going to have the biggest impact on the economy. I think initially there was over $5 billion being spent on that since the government have expanded or effectively removed the cap of $150,000 per employer. That's now expected to increase by another $4 billion. There's also the leave payments. There are some tax changes that are designed to assist with this. And then just yesterday, quite a big announcement from the government around their financial support package, incorporating both mortgage support for persons holding mortgages and also the business banking guarantee for SMEs. And lastly, there are additional support measures that are expected to be announced within the next few days. So in terms of what's out there, that's a snapshot of what there is. I'm just going to now drill into a bit more detail in terms of each of those and the information that's available. So in terms of the first one, the wage subsidy, now this is the upfront lump sum payment, which is paid out to businesses, well, effectively now has been paid out already. We've certainly had lots of clients applying, and we expect many more clients and businesses around New Zealand to be applying now that there will be an effective lockdown of all but essential businesses in New Zealand. So the lump sum is $7,026 per full-time employee and $4,200 per part-time employee. So it's paid initially as a lump sum. The government or the Inland Revenue has confirmed that it won't be subject to GST, and also that it won't be taxable income to the employer. It similarly won't be deductible to the employer. However, it will be treated as taxable income in the employee's hands, just the same as had they received their usual salary. There's a 12-week application window, so just be aware of that if you are holding off to wait and see to make sure that you are going to suffer a 30% minimum. That be aware that there's a 12-week period in which you can apply. And certainly the intention with this scheme is designed to get cash into the economy and to stimulate the economy to get them through the worst of this shock. So I would encourage people to be applying sooner rather than later, and also if you're experiencing difficulties or want to discuss things, get in contact with the banks, with ourselves, with advisors, with your local Chamber of Commerce sooner rather than later, and front foot it. So in terms of who's eligible, so employers are sole traders, partnerships, contractors. Essentially, it's open to all businesses in New Zealand. The entity requirements are that you need to be registered and operating in New Zealand. This has been defined as being registered with the New Zealand Companies Office. We have had some clients asking the question as to, for example, if they have an Australian company that is registered as a branch in New Zealand and has a New Zealand operation with New Zealand staff, whether they would qualify. At this stage, we don't have legislation to provide a definitive answer, but our view is that they would, because the the branch is registered with the New Zealand Companies Office, as opposed to being incorporated under our Companies Act. So the employees need to be legally working in New Zealand, and there needs to be an actual or expected loss of revenue by at least 30% by the business compared to the same period last year. So just on that, I really wanted to stress that it's actual or expected, and given that pretty much most businesses in New Zealand are required to shut their doors effective very shortly, I would have thought that most businesses would be able to meet this criteria. In addition, part of the extension of the relief that the government announced earlier during the week was confirming that businesses that, for example, high growth businesses, where it may not look like they've suffered a 30% reduction in income, they're now allowed to compare it to a month which is more comparable to current trading, and also sole traders who have fluctuations in their income throughout the year, so comparing it with the same month last year might not look exactly paint the right picture, are allowed to calculate that over an average over the last 12 months. And I think that those factors are also supportive of this being something that is available to all businesses. So you must have taken steps to mitigate the impact, and the businesses must make their best endeavours to retain staff and pay at least 80% of their normal income. So we have had a few queries around shareholder salaries and how people would apply. In that instance, our advice is that the company is still the employer, and therefore it would apply on the basis that the shareholder employee is an employee, and that the company is suffering a 30% or more expected or actual loss of revenue in terms of replacing the shareholder employee's income. So applying is done online at WINS, and also just a point there that if you're an employer, you need to provide a privacy form to your employees. They need to agree that you will provide their information with the MSD, and also that the MSD will share that information with other government agencies. So I've just listed out there the information that you'll need, which is IRD number, employee details, etc. One comment there is that a New Zealand business number is only required to be provided by employers. So if for sole traders and other entities or individuals that don't have employees but are just applying on their own behalf, they don't need to now go through the process of applying for a New Zealand business number in order to get the subsidy. So the subsidy is definitely wide-ranging and will have a significant impact in the short term, and we encourage people to take, to apply where they're eligible, and also, feel free to contact us with questions as you go through the process. So the second measure there is the leave payments. So that is not a lump sum, and it is a fortnightly payment, and it's designed to basically cover the cost of employees either self-isolating or who become sick with COVID-19, or people who are caring for dependents who meet that criteria, so are required to self-isolate or are sick with COVID-19. So it's at the same rate, $585.50 per week per full-time employee, or $350 per week per part-time employee. Just note there that you need to apply every 14 days. So if you have a staff member that's sick for, say, 6 weeks, you would have to apply every 14 days for their period of sickness. The government has confirmed that you would be eligible to be paid out for that entire period, but that you'd need to keep reapplying. So again, that's open to everybody, employers, sole traders, partnerships, contractors. There's only an 8-week application window for relief under this category. So that may well be extended depending on New Zealand's response to the virus, and also how effective our lockdown measures are. So again, it's available to all types of employees, full-time, part-time, casual, provided they're legally working in New Zealand. In terms of self-employed people, they must have been earning the minimum wage. they must be able to show that they're expecting to work and that they cannot now draw an income for an affected period. So I guess in that case, because we now have a lockdown, that would be relatively easy to show that you can't draw an income unless you're able to work from home, of course, and also, I guess, showing that you've had cancellations, for example, in terms of expecting to work. So just a point about that requirement in terms of the need to self-isolate under Ministry of Health guidelines. So I appreciate that almost the entire country is in lockdown at the moment. However, that doesn't mean that the entire country would be eligible for the leave payments. So based on current information, the Ministry of Health guidelines are still stating that you are required to self-isolate when you have returned from overseas travel or if you have come into close contact with a confirmed case. And also you've registered with Healthline. So what this means is that self-isolating under those Ministry of Health guidelines is different to employees having to abide by the lockdown rules. And leave payments at this point in time would only be available to employees that are required to self-isolate or who are actually sick or caring for people that are self-isolating or sick. So just be aware of that slight distinction there in terms of the leave payments. And just a point as well in terms of registering with Healthline, I know that we've all seen the headlines in the news that it's taking hours and hours to get through. They now have an online registration, so employees are able to go and register online if they're self-isolating, so that should hopefully make things a bit easier. Again, you apply online and you need to provide the same privacy policy to employees. So I'm just going to really briefly skip over the text changes. I'm sure that most people have had a chance to see these in headlines in the news, and we've certainly sent an article out to clients about the changes already, but I just wanted to mention them because they are, while they're not going to have an immediate impact, they are designed to assist with cash flow, I guess, in the medium term for businesses. So the big one there is reintroduction of tax depreciation on commercial and industrial buildings. That applies from the start of the 2021 tax year. So if you have a March balance date from 1 April 2020, it means you can factor that deduction into your provisional tax payments, which if you've got a standard March balance date would be in from August, January next year, and then May the following year, May next year as well. There is an immediate deduction for capital expenditure up to $5,000 during the 2021 income year. So that is squarely designed to encourage spending. And then that will actually be permanently, well, it's going to be reduced from $5,000, but currently it's a $500 level, so it will be permanently increased to $1,000 from the year after. So provisional tax threshold is rising to $5,000, so that just means that you're not required to pay under the provisional tax regime until you reach $5,000 of residual income tax. Excuse me, I just skipped ahead there. The IRD have got a 2-year discretion to waive use of money interest payments where a business has been impacted by COVID-19. So as mentioned, I think that will be a lot of businesses in New Zealand. And if you're struggling to make tax payments, I would strongly encourage you to get in contact with the IRD and be applying for that relief. And I guess also, it wasn't announced as a tax change, but the IRD certainly have information on their website saying that they have, additional leniency for instalment arrangements and other relief for businesses impacted by COVID-19. So it's well worth, if you're struggling to make tax payments, it is well worth front-footing that and getting in contact with the IRD sooner rather than later. So the financial support package, so that's just come out recently, and it sounds quite a significant package. So we're essentially waiting for further details to come, and no doubt once that's out we will hear a lot from the banks in terms of what they're willing to offer. But the principle is that there's two aspects to it. So there's the mortgage support for mortgage holders, and it's essentially proposing a 6-month principal and interest payment holiday for mortgage holders for people whose incomes have been impacted on COVID-19 disruptions. So that, I guess, is a factor, and it will certainly help employees during this tough time. And the other big announcement there is the Business Finance Guarantee Scheme. So I know that lots of people will be interested to hear the details of this, and it's essentially designed to be a short-term credit facility to be provided to solvent small and medium enterprises impacted by COVID-19. So again, I think that a large portion of New Zealand would fit into this criteria. There's proposed to be a $500,000 limit per loan, and it will be available to small and medium enterprises with a turnover between $250,000 and $80 million per annum. They've announced that it will be on a 3-year term, and that interest rates will be competitive and transparent. And the government are essentially backing 80% of the risk, whereas 20% will be carried by the banks. So that's really positive, and I think that's a move that will be welcomed by business, particularly in terms of addressing that second question around cash flow, and then also dealing with sustainability in terms of dealing with this shock of what is already happening. They've also mentioned that the Reserve Bank are reducing the bank's core funding ratios from 75 to 50% to make sure that there is plenty of money out there available for lending. So more on that later, but that's certainly a positive change. And finally, awaiting announcements on the additional income support, but Finance Minister Grant Robertson did announce that they will be looking at new income support measures for all workers above and beyond the wage subsidy scheme. So details will be coming around this soon. And once we've got that information, we'll do another podcast and provide some more information to keep everybody updated. So I guess just wanted to say thanks very much for listening today. If you're experiencing difficulty or have questions, or if you're just simply wanting to discuss what your options are, please do get in touch. Our team are fully up and running, and we're all working remotely, and we're here to assist you to get through this tough time. It is really a time when we need to pull together as a country, and that's certainly the aim at Nexia New Zealand. Stay safe, everyone, and thank you.